My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz Live. We're back with World Cup action and it's an eagerly awaited clash with India's first match out of the way. It's Australia taking on the West Indies, two former world champions clashing, and that too in Nottingham on a surface that can best be described as an enigma. Just to throw two numbers at you before I introduce my guests. The last time Australia played an ODI on this, they conceded 481. The last time West Indies played an ODI on this, they conceded 105 to Pakistan. So take your pick. It's the same ground. It's a very similar surface. But an enigma is the only way I can describe it. Zaheer Khan and Joy Bhattacharjya, with those numbers there, Joy, you wonder what kind of ground this is. Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah, it is a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde ground. But interestingly, they're saying that the surface that they're playing on today is not the surface that was 140 or, that first match wicket. So it could be a different wicket. It's a small ground. If these guys get going, this could. And remember, a lot of it was just their inability to cope with, bowling, which was up here. That was far more a factor than anything else.
But we'll have to wait and see, I think, how much turn there will be in the second innings, because Finch was very keen on batting first, looking at the dryness of the surface. Also looking at the ground dimensions, it's been a high-scoring ground. If the wicket is playing well, if you're batting first, you don't know what is the kind of total which you should be okay with. So that's something, it's a two-edged sword at the moment, playing in England, because particularly on this ground, because you've seen a low-scoring match here, you've seen a high-scoring match here, and the history suggests that it's been a high-scoring ground. So, that's something which tactically every team has to make that call according to what their strengths are. And I think for West Indies, the reason to bowl first is pretty simple, because they have the power hitters. Now, Evan Lewis also has come back in the squad, playing 11, so he's fit. So that's something, which is going to strengthen that opening lineup, because Shai Hope certainly very, very formidable at number 3 than opening the innings. So we'll have to wait and see how Gayle also goes about it, because there is a nice lead up to the match which has been made things interesting. So we'll have to wait for that battle later. But now at the moment we'll have to see how Russell's fitness is, because his bowling overs are going to be very crucial for West Indies also to stack up those 50 overs.
We'll talk more about that. In fact, even the conundrum about where they actually play Shai Hope, because he's starting to enjoy the opening slot. Evan Lewis has been happy to bat at 3 at times, but that's another discussion. Let's talk about not the 481, not 105, but the in-between totals that have made this World Cup so mouth-watering. And one of them we had last night between New Zealand and Bangladesh. Bangladesh putting on 244. They could have got maybe 10 more runs in that last over with Saifuddin batting brilliantly, and how well they bowled to keep New Zealand and took it right down, 48th over. It took Mitchell Santner and Lockie Ferguson to kind of edge it around the place, but it just shows that we are not talking about Bangladesh as a team who are causing upsets anymore. They've won their first game and they've narrowly lost their second. And I think they've really sent out a strong message.
No, absolutely. I think over the last 3, 4, 5 years, that whole thing about that these guys are not big tournament guys, these guys can't do. These guys now play a home series against the West Indies or anyone, they're favourites at home ground. And they have, the other thing is that, what we didn't expect in this World Cup is guys who actually playing those middle overs and just playing the ball round. And I feel in some ways the 50 overs format suits Bangladesh better than it suits, say, the West Indies, which are a 20 over power hitting team. Now, whereas Shakib is not that useful in a 20 over match, because, he may not always have that brute strength, but in this kind of wicket, he'll go and get a 16, 80, 17, 90, one or two guys accelerate. So they're a very good 50 over side. They may not have that much brute power as some of the other guys. And also, 10 over bowling is a very different skill from 4 over bowling. So I think Bangladesh as a 50 over side are a far more formidable proposition than a 20 over side.
And that's another fact I wanted to bring you into it. Defending 244, in the past, Bangladesh might have done that in their home surface with 4 spinners.
4 left-arm spinners.
4 left-arm spinners. But in this case, they've done it at the Oval with, of course, a little bit of help from spin, who bowled well. Shakib Al Hasan did and Mehdi Hassan Miraj did. But Saifuddin and Mustafizur Rahman giving Mashrafi that support, and they were the ones key at the end.
To start with, it's great for the World Cup. It was important that Bangladesh also puts up that fight, puts up some points on board, and they've done it very early in the tournament. Which is a great sign for the World Cup. That you'll see the competition which everyone has been talking about, that they've cut short the number of teams for this World Cup so that the competition and the cricket which is played is of high quality. And so far, we've not been disappointed with that, which is a great thing to see. Bangladesh putting runs on board and winning matches is always going to be the formula for them. But that non-reliance on spin and finding those options which can contribute even in these conditions, because I mean one thing you're always looking at this Bangladesh team, because they don't have the resources to play under these conditions. Yes, if they're playing a home series, they have a better chance to beat any of the teams. But in these conditions, that they may fell short. But so far they've been putting up a fight. After a win, they've backed it up nicely, which was another complaint which most of the fans also had with that team, that you're not backing your good performances. You just getting complacent. So that one thing they've done it nicely playing against New Zealand. So all in all, I think it's definitely going to be a confidence booster for them. New Zealand, on the other hand, was expected to win. Yes, they made it a little difficult for themselves. But so far in the World Cup, we've seen this trend that middle order batting is going to be very, very crucial in these conditions. And one another thing, that in these conditions you can lose a couple of wickets in bunches. So because of the conditions, as a bowling team, you always have to keep that in mind, that whatever that scoreboard shows, you add 2 wickets to that, because that's when the real pressure comes, and the conditions allows you to do that. So you've got to have that faith always in your ability and think that way of the game, rather than even when you're batting. You can't just relax because you have. Yesterday's case was a classic case, isn't it? New Zealand, Ross Taylor and Kane Williamson had that partnership. So you just thought that, okay, the game is just dragging along. You expected New Zealand to win easily, but wasn't the case. One brought 2. And then suddenly the pressure was on. The pressure got a couple more. The partnership couldn't really happen. And suddenly the game could have gone either way. And that's something which you will see consistently in this tournament, I feel, especially as we go along, and if the overhead conditions are supporting that.
Another one of our Cricbuzz live team, Simon Dool, he kind of stressed on this as well. We often say that, look, get your 7+4 formula, 7 batsmen, 4 bowlers, because if number 7 can't do it, number 8 won't. But he said there are going to be matches when 7, 8, 9 will win it for you. Yesterday again, as he said, case in point, Mitchell Santner, Lockie Ferguson.
Exactly. Santner was nerveless through that final thing. And of course, I know that you're extremely popular in Bangladesh nowadays. I think you predicted their score by about...
Why are you rubbing that in now?
No, I'm just bring it up again. I'm just thinking that sooner or later he'll be going back to work in Bangladesh.
139. What did you predict?
I had predicted 205.
Okay.
And they made 300 plus. So anyway, I've made up for that by saying they were going to win. And of course, there's no question of using the word upset.
I like how hard you're trying.
Yeah, it's a long visa form. It's a long visa form that you have to fill up. And now they have these boxes to tick on it. It's not just about where you've traveled to. It's about what your predictions were for Bangladesh. That's added to the visa form on page 2. Right, coming back to this game, we've showed you the West Indies lineup. It's, of course, Australia who will bat first. Finch was happy to do that. Jason Holders asked him to do it. And I think there'll be, if there's going to be spin later, if it's going to be dry, I think he's happy to do that. Unchanged lineup. We thought maybe Nathan Lyon would come in with the Chris Gayle factor and the left-hander factor, but they've stuck with Adam Zampa and the rest of their lineup, who look pretty lethal.
They're pretty lethal. The other belief, I think, is that while we think, and we have a bit of a history, Chris Gayle is, I don't think Chris Gayle been in good form, but he's not the kingpin of their team as maybe he was 3-4 years back. They're less dependent on him today than they were in the last 5 years back, 4 years back. And he's also understands that he has a strong supporting cast around him. So I think even teams are not, they might target him, but they're not unlikely nowadays to make a team change just to target him. You know what I mean?
But the question is, the very fact that he's saying that you've got the Hetmeyers and the Lewises and the Russells and the Brathwaites and good bowling, but yet the Australian bowlers have decided that the mental games are going to go towards Chris Gayle. Does he even listen to stuff like this?
You look at that West Indies lineup, and there are so many left-handers. Actually, bringing in off-spinner wouldn't have been a bad call.
Gayle, yeah, exactly.
But this is something which has got me really excited. Because,
Mr. Worldwide. Let's talk about that. What's his name, Mr. Worldwide? You can't even remember.
To start with, Australians was all about for the last 1.5 years since the time
Playing the game in the spirit.
the sandpaper gate had happened. It was about bringing about that cultural change. We're not going to be saying things. We're just going to go play our cricket and go back. Is this the first series Warner and Smith being back in the squad?
It is.
It is.
So I don't know exactly whether it's Warner and Smith or just the cultural change which they were talking about. You see those jerseys which Australians are wearing. It's very retro. So maybe
They're back to the bad old
cultural
days.
change is about going back to what it was, which was working for them. But look, I mean. I didn't expect Australians to go after Chris Gayle, because if you're doing something like this, you got to be smart. You got to be smart about it. You got to target a player, a batsman, or go after the opponent captain. You got to be smart with that. The reason I'm saying it, because you got to go after the guy who is going to get under pressure after using these kind of words. So I don't think Chris Gayle is the sort of guy who is going to get bogged down. If not, he's just going to get inspired to come out there and make sure that he puts up a great show. He's gonna forget that he's a 40-year-old. He's gonna forget that his reflexes are getting slower. He's gonna forget the fact that his back is troubling him.
Yeah, reflexes
he's
slow,
gonna
bad
come
back.
all
That's Chris
guns
Gayle's
blazing.
2019.
Yeah, I mean and you're giving him the right platform. I feel that it may work because it takes only one delivery to get a batsman out, and yes, the short ball has been troubling Chris Gayle. But when you put it out there in the open in this fashion that we are not considering you, and he'll say that okay, fine. This is the right kind of inspiration. You might end of the game today. You might have Chris Gayle having his say. And if he's having his say, it's not going to be good. That means he's had a great outing, and he'll be at that presentation saying that, oh, these words really inspired me and got the best out of me to play the kind of innings which he's played.
So there is a right way and a wrong way to do this. And the man sitting next to you probably knows the righter way to do it, shall we say?
Absolutely. No, I mean, it's very interesting, and it happens all the time. In fact, sometimes teams take it to inspire it. I mean, the West Indies manager might just go and tape it up in the locker room to make sure Chris Gayle has seen that message. Because if you remember, P.R. Mansingh, that's what he did, when India played their first World Cup match in the West Indies. The first match, when they won in '83, P.R. Mansingh went out there and he read out a David Frith column saying, India shouldn't be playing the World Cup. Teams like India bringing down the standard of the World Cup. So if you tell a Kapil Dev that, he thinks that he has something. So look, as I said, sometimes even, as I said, a good manager will take it and put it up, or a captain will put it up and say, Chris, maybe you'll have something to do.
It can happen in all walks of life. I mean, for me, my earliest memory of hearing this was for Amitabh Bachchan when he used to be a young corporate in Calcutta working for Blacker and Company, and he did a couple of plays, and when he did his first play, there was a statesman correspondent who wrote so-and-so was good, so-and-so was good, but this young man called Mr. Bachchan should not take up acting as a career. And he did read that in the papers. So it's one of those things that can inspire you. Yeah. So 2008, Zaheer, was there a right way to do it?
2008, which month? 2007 or 2008?
First Test match, Bangalore.
Yeah, well, there are so many incidences where you have to just pinpoint exactly which.
Fair enough.
He's done it many
so
times.
Many he says. So many.
But I think always you would never go after someone like Virat Kohli. In today's generation, that's the right example. You don't want to go after him because he's just going to bring out his best game, and that's something. Those battles he enjoys. He might have taken Rabada's comment lightly, but inside he knows what he has to do out there, and he's driven that way. In our time, Steve Waugh was the classic example. He used to love that battle on the field. If someone nudging him, that used to bring out the best in him. And with Chris Gayle, knowing his personality, these kind of comments are actually going to inspire him. He's actually going to, because he's got that fire. He comes across as someone who takes things lightly. He's always a party boy, and all those kind of things. But he's very serious when it comes to his cricket, and that's the reason he's playing for so long. If he's not passionate about the game, you think that he'll be hanging in there for so long. Of course, that passion is there. He wants to go out there, prove a point, and this is at this stage. It's just setting a stage for him, to be inspired and motivated to go out there and perform.
Also, I believe that the Australians can't basically change. I mean, if you look at it, they talk about in the convicts coming out in 1761. The Australian nature is to sledge, fight, say whatever you have to, then have a drink later. But the truth of it is, on the game, they've won and they've been successful with that. Suddenly, you want to become good boys and go to church and all that. वो होता नहीं है यार. Once they started winning, they go back to their old ways. Always remember, the other interesting thing is, their captain never does it, their main player will never do it. The chirp will always come from the side, Pat Cummings, some other player. It will not come from the captain, it will not come from a Finch, it will not come from Steve Smith. And they do it so that when the attack comes, he will not attack him back, You get what I mean? If it's captain to captain, the guy might make a statement back. So it's often and John Buchanan has written about in his book, it was a tactic, it was a deliberate tactic that they used to do. When in India, as I said, Zach was good enough to do it on his own. He didn't need, the management.
I strongly feel at this point in the World Cup, if all the teams, if you feel that Australia is coming with this nine win streak and all those kind of things, they're playing well. If they have to derail them, it's very simple. You have to go after Warner and Smith.
Yeah.
Why the other teams have been so good. You have to remind them of what has been happening, and if they started in this fashion right now, teams are going to take note of that. It's like, we've been nice to Australia. We are helping good cricketers, and everyone has been giving sympathy to Warner and Smith,
except for the crowds in England.
Yeah, maybe, but just on the whole, if you look at it, in the world of cricket, everyone has been saying that Smith has been hard done. Warner, they should be given the chance. Create an environment which is as good as for them. Then why start this? I think the timing of it is wrong, and I hope that in the World Cup, other teams take note of this and bring out their best game. So that's something which won't be a wrong thing to do going forward.
Question for all of you. It's not a joy factor question. Who are Australia playing next on Sunday? India. Simple answer. Yeah. So
I would ask.
That's a subtle message to the Indian team management. I hope Ravi is taking note of this.
Absolutely. I'd love to ask Steve Smith how the carpentry classes are going, all that sandpapering.
Oh, between the two of them, I don't know which one to turn to if you had to do a lesson. Okay, quick one to finish this whole discussion. If you really had to target somebody, say in the Indian team, if you were Australia and they had to do it again, maybe they've picked Gayle as the wrong person and not Kohli, who's someone who you could possibly ruffle up?
Okay, why, if everyone is watching this show, why would I do this for the Indian team right now?
He's not going to do it.
Okay, we've got far too many people tuned in, so we're not going to say this right now. We'll have a private discussion about that, and after
you
Sunday...
think Zach has not already sent that message to Ravi?
After Sunday, we will talk about it again. But let's remind all of you that get out your pieces of paper. There's no need to sandpaper it. Just take a pen or, of course, your laptops and get onto my11circle.com. Download the app if you haven't already done it. We know lots and lots of you have. And select today's match and create your own team. It's very simple. Just get that 11 and you know the rest of it. It will be self-explanatory. The only thing left to be said is that be very careful how you choose your team, because sitting in England, Sourav Ganguly is choosing his team, Dada Kavada. If you can beat him, 5 times the amount of cash. I'm playing, lots of us are playing, so make sure you take note of that. But when it comes to the Australians, let's leave Smith out of it for the moment. David Warner has been already shown that he's come back in good form. Steve Smith was a little scratchy during the IPL, showed glimpses of it, but fabulous innings against Afghanistan in the first game with 89, and I think that's one of the things. Forget what's being said. David Warner let the bat speak as he does.
I think, look, he's a very classy batsman. He's brilliant, he's in form, and he's really important for them because the way they are batting, Maxwell has not been as consistent as he can. So they're really depending on that, basically Smith, him and Finch to really deliver the big numbers for them. And look, he's always delivered for them under pressure. I've never seen a time when he's not delivered for them. All his problems have been off the field. He's not on the field really.
The issue has been with Finch. He's been patchy with form. You've seen it that Bhuvneshwar Kumar has been troubling him with the delivery coming back in. So that's something which West Indies should have taken the note of, and you'll see that as well. That will be the primary line of attack. And if Finch sees that phase through, then it will be interesting because Warner is someone who has has great record against West Indies as well. He's in good form. So from Australia's point of view, they will be hoping that Warner continues with the kind of form which he has been in, and the kind of innings which he has played in the first match as well.
Phenomenal numbers these are from the IPL.
Look at that strike rate, 143. Even though it's a different format, so I don't really like to compare the T20 format to the ODI because your approach changes, isn't it? You've seen it with the first 10 overs that all likes of Rohit Sharma also. You look at his T20 strike rate and you look at his 50-over strike rate. It will be different to start with, especially those first 10-15 runs or 10-15 deliveries which you face. So what matters is the kind of touch he is in, and that first match is a reference point of that. So it was important that he gets runs. What was good to see was Finch was among the runs, and he's someone who is a very important part of that team, because when you're captain, you need to be in good form. Because as a batsman, if you're failing and you have responsibility of the whole team, it doesn't really work. It affects your captaincy as well in terms of making those decisions. So from that point of view, it's important that that as a captain you should be in form, and Finch has shown the signs of that form, which is good for this Australian side. In the middle overs, the key is going to be Smith. Even though Usman Khwaja has been in good nick and has been scoring runs, I think the key is Smith, because someone needs to anchor that innings. So if Warner or Finch is out early, in that middle phase, you need someone to control the innings, because you have Maxwell and Stoinis. So that's power at the back end. So if one end is sorted, you can really go bang bang at the other end, and then the all-rounders come into play.
Yeah, that's one more look at it. Alex Carey, not often talked about, but he's going to be part of that middle and lower middle order. But yes, that's that Steve Smith plus Stoinis and Maxwell will be very, very key.
Yeah, and they bat right up to 9. I mean, Pat Cummins is a very, very decent batsman. So I mean, it's a long batting order. It's a decent batting order. They've got the pieces to make a run for in this tournament, definitely.
Yeah, but when you talk about pieces, look across all the 10 teams. There's one team, of course, who have not only missing the likes of Dale Steyn, Lungi Ngidi, who's now injured. Hashim Amla briefly missed that one game, but that one key piece in their puzzle has been missing for a few months now. And suddenly, a new revelation about Abraham Benjamin de Villiers, the fact that he was actually willing to come into this squad, and the timing could not have been better if it's actually true that it could have happened.
I mean, it depends on which side you're looking at. If you're an Australian, if you're a South African selector, what you would be worried about is the fact news leaked now, after they lost 3 matches. So far this news has been kept under wraps. So obviously somebody has opened their mouth after 3 matches. But if you go back to that thing, from whatever I've read of it, what happened was on that particular day, okay, when it came out, it was 24 hours before the last date for the team selection, the last teams had to be given. So would you have made a call in that day? I mean, would you have?
It was too late for that, for sure, and it's a complex scenario and a situation than how it's looking. As fans, at the moment you are emotional. You would always want to see the great player like AB being part of that South African lineup, but the decision was AB de Villiers as well. So he had taken that decision way ahead of the World Cup, and at that time also the talk was the same. That AB should continue, and we have to request AB to come out of retirement and all that, but there was no response from AB de Villiers at that point. Having said that, when you are actually made peace with the fact that okay, AB is not going to be around, and now we have to plan how our World Cup campaign is going to be, then at times it's too late as well. And you've seen it with Bravo as well. West Indies has kept him as standby, and he's accepted that. So that's something which the board also could have done. It's actually, as fan, you would always want to see AB de Villiers out there. But I think, the decision was always with AB and not with the board. I think, once you've taken that call, then you can't expect the board to react to what your emotional state is, because the call was always yours.
Especially when it was taken. 1 year ago, end of IPL,
No, and he was very clear about it. That's it, international cricket over, this thing. And I remember the question that time. The next year's World Cup year, maybe you want to see the World Cup, maybe see them through. And he's made that statement. No, I'm really sad. I want to see them winning a World Cup. That's what was my dream, but it didn't happen. He made all those statements. So, look, to be fair to him, currently also he's saying that look, it's not my call. I made an emotional call to them. They said sorry, it's too late. And the fact of the matter is there are no villains in this. He's not accusing them. Why did they not take me? They're not saying that, how can you? They must have told a young player like Dawson saying that, okay, we are grooming you. This is it. You need to do this to get in the team. Now, one day before, they can't turn and say, sorry, AB called up. Sorry, you're out of it,
Yeah, if that is a fact, if 24 hours prior to the meeting, the message had gone, if that is a fact, then you can't really blame the selectors as well, because it's too late for them. They already set the planning. Then the call is with the team management. So there are various things involved in this. Till the time we don't get that clarity, we can't say that, okay, exactly whose fault was that. But I can tell you one thing, this news coming out at this stage in the tournament,
after 3 matches,
for South Africa, it's not a great sign. Because now already everyone is going to be divided. If not everyone in the team was aware of this, then there's going to be another debate which is going to start within the camp. And that's something which is not going to help the team going forward. Forget the fans and how the selectors are going to be and who was in favor of AB and who was not in favor of AB. That's a separate debate. You have a World Cup to play, you have a job in hand, which is already had a shaky start. Will it going to help that course of action? The answer is no. I think, it's just going to make things way more difficult, and it might turn into a disastrous World Cup for South Africa, which they would want to forget. And even if they want to forget, they won't be able to forget for the long, long time.
Yes, and really, it's really their most, as Joy mentioned, their most talented batsman, Rasif van der Dusen, who would have been the one, if anything. So I think best left alone for us. I think maybe Indian fans would be saying, unless they make the semi-final, now it's okay, get AB in. He's playing all the other teams, so it's okay. We're okay with that. But one more little teaser for you, and we've got the man in the studio. So let's see what Joy has for us today.
It concerns the player here. Okay, this particular player achieved a unique feat in Test cricket in October 2013, which has still not been equalled. However, even before he became part of this Test record books, he had done something in his debut Test for which he's also in the record books. Literally, the first Test that he played, he was immediately in the Test record books, and he'd always be there. What happened to him in his first Test? And who is this player, basically?
Okay, I'll give you one hint if I'm allowed to do that.
It's a long career.
It's not MS Dhoni.
Is it a long career are we talking about here?
No. 2013, I'll tell you, the person who was involved in the first record, the first record in his debut Test, is playing today.
Oh.
All right, so there you have it. It's Australia versus West Indies. Think of all the people. He's in the 11? He's in one of the 11. So you have 22 players to choose from, and that's, I think, a good enough hint, a good enough reason to be tuning in here and listening to maybe more hints at the halfway stage. So before we head out, we still need to get a prediction for the My 11 Circle Expert Couch, because it's not been coming our way at all. Either we've been too high, too low. Teams have been going a little bit here and there.
Yeah, but you guys have also, you can't do a plus 10 point on this. You've got to do a plus.
No, there's a plus 15.
You should make it plus 20.
No.
20 overs to 50 over adjustment should be plus 25 actually.
We should start this at mid innings. Either you start at mid innings or you start at 15 overs.
Yeah, well, what we will do, we will have a talk about this at this game. Let's stick to the rules right now. But we are willing to do an adjustment at the first com box, because once you've got an idea of that, you can play maybe a card maybe 3 times during an adjustment card. We'll figure those rules out. For now, let's get a prediction for the 50 overs. Australia batting first.
What the hell? In for a penny, in for a pound. 327.
327.
I'm going higher actually. I'm going 345.
327, 345. I know it's at 481 I started the show with, but I'm going to just take a little bit lower. They're going to make enough runs to trouble the West Indies, but not enough to set the place on fire. So I'll go with 303. 303, just cross, 299, last ball 4, they get to 303. There we have it. That's our predictions from here. 15th over, Cricbuzz Combox. Still no rules about whether we can revise our predictions there, but we will assess the game at that stage. This has been My 11 Circle Presents Cricbuzz Live. We'll see you then, and of course, at the halfway stage.